It is me, your amazing cult leader, Rain. I am here to commence the weekly reading frometh our cult Bible, written by moi. I'm just kidding. How is everybody? I hope y'all are good. It's a Tuesday book club. Woo, 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 let's go. I'm excited. I like book club. Book club's nice. Yes, my pretties. Yes, hee 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 hee. Double, boiling trouble. Fire burning, cauldron bubble. Hee 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 hee. Double, boiling trouble. Fire burning, cauldron bubble. Basically, kind of what happened is they got to the school, Connor, Risa, Lev. They hung out in the bathroom for as long as they could. And then I believe Risa was the one who pulled the fire alarm to cause a big commotion so that they can get out of the school. They run into this teacher on the way out who ends up helping them. She takes the baby so that actually I skipped a part. Lev turned in Risa and Connor. That's what happened. They turned in Risa and Connor, and then they had to try to create a diversion to get out of the school, so they pulled the fire alarm. So the teacher took the baby from Risa and Connor. She told them to leave, so they all got outside of the school. And then after that, as you know, the parking lot was filling with kids, Risa and Connor were trying to get out, and then Lev ran out and was trying to apologize to them, and they were like, no, get the fuck away from us. And then they started clapping all crazy, yelling clappers, because clappers basically are these terrorists that make their blood like very explosive, so when they start clapping it causes them to explode, literally. So everyone started freaking out, there was chaos, so you know, Risa and Connor used that chaos to slip away. And then the teacher was like, here, go to this lady, she's gonna help you, I'm gonna take the baby, we'll act like we were storked. And so now they're free of the baby, they're in this old lady's basement thing, hiding away, and now we're basically starting on to their journey to go with all the other runaway unwinds to wherever it is that unwinds go. So that is where we're at now. And we will get started. You know, grab some coffee, a blanket. It's raining outside where I am, so perfection. Part 3. Transit. 2003, at a Ukrainian maternity hospital number 6. The BBC has spoken to mothers from the city of Kharkiv who say they gave birth to healthy babies only to have them taken by maternity staff. In 2003, the authorities agreed to exhume around 30 bodies from a cemetery used by maternity hospital number 6. One campaigner was allowed into the autopsy to gather video evidence. She has given that footage to BBC and Council of Europe. In its report, the council describes a general culture of trafficking of children snatched at birth, and a wall of silence from hospital staff upward over their fate. The pictures show organs, including brains, have been stripped, and some bodies dismembered. A senior British forensic pathologist says he is very concerned to see bodies in pieces, as that is not a standard post-mortem practice. It could be possibly a result of harvesting stem cells from bone marrow. Hospital number 6 denies the allegations. And I think this was a real article, because down here there's a link at the bbc.com and basically when it was written and everything. Can I help you? Then come inside. Chapter 21. Lev. Ain't no one gonna tell you what's in your heart, he tells Lev. You gotta find that one out for yourself. Lev and his new travel companion walk along train tracks, surrounded by thick, bushy terrain. You got it in your heart to run from unwinding. Ain't no one can tell you it's the wrong thing to do, even if it is against the law. The good Lord wouldn't have put it in your heart if it wasn't right. You listenin', Fry? 'Cause this here is wisdom. Wisdom you can take to the grave, then dig it up again when you need some solace. Solace, that means comfort. I know what solace means, says Lev, peeved by the mention of the good Lord, who hasn't done much for Lev lately except confuse things. The kid is 15, and his name is Cyrus Finch, although he doesn't go by that name. No one calls me Cyrus, he had told Lev shortly after they met. I go by Sci-Fi. And since Sci-Fi is partial to nicknames, he calls Lev Fry, short for Small Fry. Since it has the same number of letters as Lev, he says it's appropriate. Lev doesn't want to burst his bubble by pointing out that his full name is Levi. Sci-Fi enjoys hearing himself talk. I make my own roads in life, he tells Lev. That's how come we're traveling the rails instead of some dumb old country road. Sci-Fi is Umber. They used to call us black. Can you imagine? Then there was this artist dude, mixed race himself. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. He got famous, though, for painting people of African ancestry in the Deep South. The color he used most was umber. People liked that a whole lot better, so it stuck. Bet you didn't know where the word came from, did you, Fry? Following right along, they started calling so-called white people sienna, after another paint color. Better words, didn't have no value judgment to them. Of course, it's not like racism is gone completely, but as my dad likes to say, the veneer of civilization got itself a second coat. You like that, Fry? The veneer of civilization? He slowly sweeps his hand in the air as he says it, like he's feeling the fine finish of a table. My dad's always saying stuff like that. Sci-Fi's a runaway, although he claims not to be. I ain't no runaway, I'm a run too. I'm a run too, he had told Lev when they first met. Although I won't tell Lev where he's running to. When Lev asked, Sci-Fi shook his head and said information shall be given on a need-to-know basis. Well, he can keep a secret because Lev doesn't care where he's going. The simple fact that he has a destination is enough for Lev. It's more than Lev has. Destination implies a future. If this umber-skinned boy can lend Lev that much, it's worth it to travel with him. They had met at a mall. Hunger had driven Lev there. He had hidden in a dark, lonely place for almost 2 days after he lost Connor and Risa. With no experience being a street rat, he went hungry, but eventually hunger turns anyone into a master of survival. The mall was a mecca for a newborn street rat. The food court was full of amazingly wasteful people. The trick Lev discovered was to find people who bought more food than they could possibly eat, and then wait until they were done. About half the time, they just left it on the table. Those were the ones Lev went after, because he might have been hungry enough to eat table scraps, but he was too proud to rifle through the trash. While Lev was finishing off some cheerleader's pizza, he heard a voice in his ear. You ain't gotta be eating other folks' garbage, foo. Lev froze, certain it was a security guard ready to haul him away, but it was only this tall umber kid with a funny grin, wearing attitude like it was a cologne. Let me show you how it's done. Then he went to a pretty girl who was working at the Wicked Walk Chinese food concession, flirted her with a few minutes, and then left with nothing. No food, no drink, nothing. I think I'll stick to leftovers, Lev had told him. Patience, my man. See, it's getting on towards closing time. All these places by law gotta get rid of all the food they made today. They can't keep it and reuse it tomorrow, so where do you think the food goes? I'll tell you where it goes. It goes home with the last shift. But the people who work these places ain't gonna eat that stuff on account of they're sick to death of it. See that girl I was talking to? She likes me. I told her I worked at Shirt Bonanza downstairs and could get her some overstock maybe. Do you work there? No. Are you even listening to me? So anywho, right before closing I'm gonna get myself over to the Wicked Walk again. I'll give her a smile and I'll be like, hey, what you gonna do with all that leftover food? And she'll be all like, what you got in mind? And 5 minutes later, I'm walking away in an orange chicken heaven with enough to feed an army. And sure enough, it happened exactly like he said it would. Lev was amazed. Stick with me, Sci-Fi had said, putting his fist in the air, and as God is my witness, you will never go hungry again. Forgot about this shot. Hi.
I'm 24 minutes in. And my feet.
Stick with me, Sci-Fi had said, putting his fist in the air, and God is my witness, you will never go hungry again. Then he added, that's from Gone with the Wind. I know, said Lev. Said Lev, which in fact, he didn't. Lev had agreed to go with him because he knew the two filled a need in each other. Sci-Fi was like a preacher with no flock. He couldn't exist without an audience, and Lev needed someone who could fill his head with ideas, to replace the lifetime of ideas that had been taken from him. A day later, Lev's shoes are worn and his muscles are sore. The memory of Risa and Connor is still a fresh wound and it doesn't want to heal. Chances are they were caught. Chances are they've been unwound, all because of him. Does that make him an accomplice to murder? How could it, when unwinds aren't really dead? He doesn't know whose voice is in his head anymore. His father's? Pastor Dan's? It just makes him angry. He'd rather hear Sci-Fi's voice outside of his head than whatever voices were inside. The terrain around him hasn't changed much since they left town. High shrubs and a smattering of trees. Some of the growth is evergreen, some of it yellow turning brown. Weeds grown up between the train tracks, but not too tall. Any weed dumb enough to grow tall ain't got no chance. It gets decapitated by the next train that comes through. Decapitated, that means head cut off. I know what decapitated means, and you can stop talking that way, all double negatives and stuff. Sci-Fi stops right there in the middle of the railroad tracks and stares at Lev like he's trying to melt him with his eyes. You got a problem with the way I talk? You got a problem with an old world umber patois? Patois? I don't know how that's said. I do when it's fake. What you talking about, foo? It's obvious. I'll bet people never even said things like foo except on dumb pre-war TV shows and stuff. You're speaking wrong on purpose. Wrong? What makes it wrong? It's classic, just like those TV shows, and I ain't appreciating you disrespecting my patois. Patois means... I know what it means, Lev says, even though he isn't entirely sure. I ain't stupid. Sci-Fi puts up an accusing finger like, you said ain't. Now who's talking wrong? That doesn't count. I said it because it's all I hear from you. After a while, I can't help but sound like you. At that, Sci-Fi grins. Yeah, he says. Ain't that the truth? Old world umber is contagious. It's dominant. And talking the talk don't make a person dumb. I'll have you know, I got the highest reading and writing score in my school, Fry. But I gotta respect my ancestors and all they went through so I could be here. Sure, I can talk like you, but I choose not to. It's like art, you know? Picasso had to prove to the world he can paint the right way before he goes putting both eyes on one side of a face and nose sticking out of kneecaps and stuff. See, if you paint wrong because that's the best you can do, you're just a chump. But you do it because you want to, then you're an artist. He smiles at Lev. That's a bit of Sci-Fi wisdom right there. Fry. You can take that to the grave and dig it up when you need it. Sci-Fi turns and spits out a piece of gum that hits a train rail and sticks there. Then he shoves another piece in his mouth. Anyway, my dad's got no problem with it. And they're Lily Sienna like you. They? Sci had dads before, but Lev had figured it was just some more old umber slang. Yeah, says Sci-Fi with a shrug. I got two. Ain't no thing. Lev tries his best to process this. Of course he's heard of male parenting, or yin families as they're currently called, but in the sheltered structures of his life, such things always belong to an alternate universe. Sci-Fi, however, doesn't even catch Lev's surprise. He's still on his brag jag. Yeah, I got myself an IQ of 155. Did you know that, Fry? Of course not. How could you know? Then he hesitates. It went down a few points, though, on account of the accident. I was on my bike and got hit by some damn foo in a Mercedes. He points to a scar on the side of his head. What a mess. Splattered, you know? I was nearly roadkill. It turned my right temporal lobe into jello. He shivers as he thinks about it, and then shrugs. But brain damage ain't a problem like it used to be. They just replaced the brain tissue and you're good as new. My dad's even paid off the surgeon so I get an entire temporal lobe from an Unwind. No offense, rather than getting a bunch of brain brits like people are supposed to get. Lev knows about that. His sister Kara has epilepsy, so they replaced a small part of her brain with 100 tiny brain brits. It took care of the problem, and she didn't seem any worse for it. It never occurred to Lev where those tiny pieces of brain tissue might have come from. See, brain bricks work okay, but they don't work great, Sci-Fi explains. It's like putting spackle over a hole in a wall. No matter how well you do it, that wall ain't never going to be as good. So my dad made sure I got an entire temporal lobe from a single donor. But that kid wasn't as smart as me. He wasn't no dummy, but he didn't have the 155. The last brain scan put me at 130. That's in the top 5% of the population and still considered genius, just not with a capital G. What's your IQ? He asks Lev. Are you a dim bulb or a high wattage? Lev sighs. I don't know. My parents don't believe in intelligence scans. It's kind of a religious thing. Everyone's equal in God's eyes and all that. Oh, you come from one of those families. Sci-Fi takes a good look at him. So if they all high and mighty, why they unwinding you? Although Lev doesn't want to get into it, he figures Sci-Fi is the only friend he's got. Might as well tell him the truth. I'm a tithe. Sci-Fi looks at him with eyes all wide like Lev just told him he was God himself. Damn! So you all holy and stuff? Not anymore. Sci-Fi nods and purses his lips, saying nothing for a while. They walk along the tracks. The railroad ties change from wood to stone, and the gravel on the side of the tracks now seems better maintained. We just crossed the state line, Sci-Fi says. Lev would ask him which state they've crossed into, but he doesn't want to sound stupid. Any spot where multiple tracks merge or diverge, there's a little two-story shack standing there like a displaced lighthouse. A railroad switch house. There are plenty of them along this stretch of the line, and these are the places Lev and Sci-Fi find shelter each night. Aren't you afraid someone from the railroads will find us here? Lev asks as they approach one of the sorry-looking structures. Nah, they ain't used anymore, Sci-Fi tells him. The whole system's automated. Been that way for years. But it costs too much to tear all these switch houses down. Guess they figured nature will eventually tear them down for free. The switch house is padlocked, but a padlock is only as strong as the door it's on, and this door has been routed by termites. A single kick rips the padlock hasp from the wood, and the door flies inward to a shower of dust and dead spiders. I need a drink of my coffee.
I'm 30 minutes in. I got no jacket. Wet.
You're weird, Nikolai. Upstairs is an 8x8 room. Windows on all four sides. It's freezing. Sci-Fi has an expensive-looking winter coat that keeps him warm at night. Lev only has a puffy fiberball jacket that he stole from a chair at the mall the other day. Sci-Fi's had turned his nose up when he saw Lev take that jacket just before they left the mall. Stealing's for lowlifes, Sci had said. If you got class, you don't steal what you need. You get other people to give it to you of their own free will, just like I did back at that Chinese place. It's all about being smart and smooth. You'll learn. Lev's stolen jacket is white, and he hates it. All his life he'd worn white, a pristine absence of color that defined him, but now there was no comfort in wearing it. They ate well that night, thanks to Lev, who finally had his own survivalist brainstorm. It involved small animals killed by passing trains. I ain't eating no track kill, Sci-Fi insisted when Lev had suggested it. Those things could have been rotting out here for weeks for all we know. No, Lev told him. Here's what we do. We walk a few miles down the track, marking each dead critter with a stick. Then, when the next train comes through, we backtrack. Anything we find that's not marked is fresh. Granted, it was a fairly disgusting idea on the surface, but it was really no different from hunting, if your weapon were a diesel engine. They build a small fire besides the switch house and dine on roast rabbit and armadillo, which doesn't taste as bad as Lev thought it would. In the end, meat is meat, and barbecue does for armadillo exactly what it does for steak. Smorgish bash, Sci-Fi decides to call this hunting method as they eat. That's what I call creative problem solving. Maybe you're a genius after all, Fry. It feels good to have Sai's approval. Hey, is today Thursday, says Lev, just realizing. I think it's Thanksgiving. Well, Fry, we're alive. That's plenty to be thankful for. That night, up in the small room of the switch house, Sci-Fi asks the big question. Why'd your parents tithe you, Fry? One of the good things about being with Sci-Fi is that he talks about himself a lot. It keeps Lev from having to think about his own life, except of course when Sci asks. Lev answers him with silence, pretending to be asleep, and if there's one thing he knows Sci-Fi can't stand, it's silence, so he fills it himself. Were you a storked baby? Is that it? They didn't want you in the first place and couldn't wait to get rid of you? Lev keeps his eyes closed and doesn't move. Well, I was storked, Sci says. My dad got me on the doorstep the first day of summer. No big deal. They were ready to have a family anyway. In fact, they were so pleased they finally made it official and got themselves married. It has two M's, so I don't know if that's a typo or not. I don't know. Anyway, y'all, I'll be back. I'm gonna run an ad break really quick. God damn it. I said ALR. What the fuck does that mean? I don't understand you, derp. And then I was like, alright? Does that mean alright? And then I was like, I have this shot here. I need to take it before I forget and knock it over. And then I was like, down the hatch. That's all I said in a rundown. Okay, yeah. See? I know a little bit. I understand a little bit. Alright, so we're going to continue. How are you doing that tonight, derp? I hope your week's been good. It's currently raining right now, and Nikolai's outside seeing how long he can stay out there in the freezing cold. He's crazy. Okay. Lev opens his eyes, curious enough to admit he's still awake. But after the Heartland War, didn't they make it illegal for men to get married? They didn't get married. They got married, but it's 2 M's. What's the difference? Sci-Fi looks at him like he's a moron. The letter M. Anyway, in case you're wondering, I'm not like my dad's. My compass points to girls, if you know what I mean. Yeah, mine does too. What he doesn't tell Sci-Fi is that the closest he's ever been to a date or even kissing a girl was the slow dancing at his tithing party. The thought of the parting brings a sudden and sharp jolt of anxiety that makes him want to scream, so he squeezes his eyes tight and forces that explosive feeling to go away. Everything from Lev's old life is like that now, a ticking time bomb in his head. Forget that life, he tells himself. You're not that boy anymore. What are your parents like? Sci-Fi asks. I hate them, Lev says, surprised that he said it, surprised that he means it. That's not what I asked. This time, Sai isn't taking silence for an answer, so Lev tells him as best as he can. My parents, he begins, do everything they're supposed to do. They pay their taxes, they go to church, they vote the way their friends expect them to vote, and they think what they're supposed to think. And they send us to schools that raise us to think exactly like they do. My compass is invisible. I'm doing okay. I spent like $15 on earbuds I'm never going to use again, but let me just listen to you. Oh. Did you buy them just so you could listen to the stream? My compass is invisible. Does that mean you are an asexual? Or is it just another joke? Okay, I'll stop. This time, Sai isn't taking silence for an answer. So Lev tells him as best as he can. Oh, I already read all that. I'm just confused about myself. That's valid. It's completely valid. I'm sure there are more people confused about themselves than they'd like to admit. Doesn't sound too terrible to me. It wasn't, says Lev, his discomfort building. But they love God more than they love me, and I hate them for it. So I guess that means I'm going to hell. Tell you what. When you get there, save a room for me, okay? Why? What makes you think you're going there? I don't, but just in case. Gotta plan your contingencies, right? 2 days later, they find themselves in the town of Scottsburg, Indiana. Well, at least Lev finally knows what state they're in. He wonders if maybe this is Sci-Fi's destination, but Sci hasn't said anything either way. They've left the railroad tracks, and Sci-Fi tells Lev they have to go south on country roads until they can find trucks headed in that direction. Sci hasn't been acting right. It began the night before. Something in his voice. Something in his eyes, too. At first, Lev thought it was his imagination, but now in the pale light of the autumn day, it's clear that Sci-Fi isn't himself. He's lagging behind Lev instead of leading. His stride is all off, more like a shuffle than a strut. It makes Lev anxious in a way he hasn't been since before he met Sci-Fi. Are you ever going to tell me where we're going? Lev asks, figuring that maybe they're close, and maybe that's why Sci's acting weird. Sci-Fi hesitates, weighing the wisdom of saying anything. Finally, he says, we're going to Joplin. That's in southwest Missouri, so we've still got a long way to go. In the back of his mind, Lev registers that Sci-Fi has completely dropped his old Umber way of talking.
I can't feel my feet.
Now he sounds like any other kid Lev might have known back home. But there's also something dark and throaty about his voice now, too. Vaguely menacing, like the voice of a werewolf before it turns. What's in Joplin? Lev asks. Now, more so, I bought wired earbuds because I got tired of wireless and they don't go in my ears well. I have you on my PC right now. Oh, okay, yeah, I feel that. Finding a good pair of headphones is annoying. I don't know if I just have like small ear canals, but after a while they make my ears sore. What's in Joplin? Lev asks. Nothing for you to worry about. But Lev is beginning to worry. Because when Sci-Fi gets where he's going, Lev will be alone again. This journey was easier when he didn't know the destination. As they walk, Lev can tell Sci's mind is somewhere else. Maybe it's in Joplin. What could be there? Maybe a girlfriend moved there? Maybe he had tracked down his birth mother. Lev had worked up a dozen reasons for Sci-Fi to be on this trip, and there's probably a dozen more he hasn't even thought of. There's a main street in Scottsburg trying to be quaint, but just looking tired. It's late morning as they move through town. Restaurants are gearing up for the lunch crowd. So are you going to use your charms to get us a free meal, or is it my turn to try? Lev asks. He turns to Sai, but he's not there. A quick scan of the shops behind him, and Lev sees a door swinging closed. It's a Christmas store. Its windows all done up in green and red decorations, plastic reindeer, and cotton snow. Lev can't imagine Sai has gone in there, but when he peers in the window, there he is, looking around like a customer. With the weird way Sci-Fi has been acting, Lev has no choice but to go in as well. It's warm in the store, and it smells of artificial pine. It's the kind of scent they put on cardboard air fresheners. There are fully trimmed aluminum Christmas trees all around, displaying all sorts of holiday decorations, each tree with a different theme. In another time and place, Lev would have loved wandering through a store like this. A saleswoman eyes them surreptitiously. It was actually a Twitch streamer, and she was in Londo's stream tonight. I don't know why I thought of her. But anyway. Suspiciously from behind the counter. Lev grabs Sai's shoulder. Come on, let's get out of here. But Sai shakes him off and goes over to a tree that's decorated all in glittering gold. He seems mesmerized by all the bulbs and tinsel. There's the slightest twitch right behind his left eye. Sai, whispers Lev. Come on, we've got to get to Joplin, remember? Joplin? But Sai's not moving. The saleswoman comes over. She wears a holiday sweater and a holiday smile. Can I help you find something? No, says Lev. We're just leaving. A nutcracker, says Sai. I'm looking for a nutcracker for my mom. Oh, they're on the back wall. The woman turns to look across the store, and the moment she does, Sai picks a dangling gold bauble from the glittering tree and slips it into his coat pocket. I love that word, bauble. That's such a good word. Just bauble. It just comes off the tongue nicely. So, we will make note that earlier, Sai was being like, stealing is for lowlives, and now he's stealing this bauble. Obviously, I feel like the symbolism of the bauble means something to Sai. I mean, Sai is still very mysterious. We don't know a lot about his background besides the fact that he was a storked baby and he has two fathers, and the fact that he's black and his fathers were white. That's all we know. He's trying to get to Joplin, Missouri. It could be for his family, or his birth family. Maybe it is his birth mom. I'm sure he'll tell us what the bauble means later on. I don't know. So the fact that he's stealing now kind of makes you think, like, what is going on in Sci-Fi's head. Let's see. Lev stands there, Lev just stands there stunned. Sai doesn't even spare Lev a glance as he follows the woman to the back wall where they discuss nutcrackers. There's a panic brewing deep down in Lev now, slowly finding its way to the surface. Sai and the woman chat for a few moments more, then Sai thanks her and comes back to the front of the store. I've got to get more money from home, he says in his Sai, not Sai voice. I think my mom will like the blue one. You don't have a mom, Lev wants to say. But he doesn't because all that matters now is getting out of that shop. Lev is a little snitch. He's giving everyone up here and there. To be fair, he is only 13. He's still a kid. A kid who was raised in a really, 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 really religious household. So Sai leaves, and Lev makes sure he's right behind him, just in case Sai suddenly has a phantom urge to go back into the store and take something else. Then the moment the door closes behind them, Sci-Fi takes off. He doesn't just run, he ejects, like he's trying to burst out of his own skin. He bolts down the block, then into the street, then back again. Cars honk, a truck nearly mows him down. He darts in random directions like a balloon losing air, and then he disappears into an alley far down the street. This is not about a gold Christmas bulb. It can't be. It's a meltdown. It's a seizure, the nature of which Lev can't even begin to guess. Should just let him go, Lev thinks. Let him go and then run in the opposite direction and not look back. Lev could survive on his own now. He's gotten street smart enough. He could do it without Sci-Fi. But there was that look about Sai before he ran. Desperation. It was just like the look in Connor's face the moment he pulled Lev out of his father's comfortable sedan. Lev had turned on Connor. He will not turn on Sci-Fi. Guilt. Lev feels so much guilt for doing what he did to Risa and Connor. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. We're just going to let him continue to think that they were possibly unwound, though. Even though we know that they're safe for now and on their way to some hidden unwind camp. With a pace and a stride far steadier than Sci-Fi's, Lev crosses the street and makes his way down the alley. I mean, I know how the book ends. I read it, but everybody else does not. Hi, Future Panda 5914. How are you with your spoilers today? Have you read the book too, or did you Google the ending? They're good books. Somebody does get unwound, and I'm pretty sure it's the kid with the shark tattoo. Because they go through that whole process in one of the chapters, which is like... Yep, it's right here. It's right here in the book. Is that Unwound chapter, and that's like one of my favorite chapters. It's so, like, interesting to see in, you know, the author's perspective how that goes. But anyway, let's see. There we go. Sci-Fi, he calls, loud enough to be heard, but not loud enough to draw attention. Sci! He glances in dumpsters and doorways. Cyrus, where are you? He comes... So not the girl with the dragon tattoo? No, not the girl with the dragon tattoo. Unfortunately, it was actually Harry Potter. Harry Potter almost gets unwound at the end. And then he's got to go find his bike, because somebody stole his bike. So he goes to find his bike, you know, and on the way, he meets an ice queen whose name is Anna. And then they all go on some big adventure on the, what is it, the 8 Mile High Club. And it's a bunch of fuckery. That's how the book ends. Meowrina. Oh, I'm sorry if I'm in and out, but I'm getting my little one to bed. Just wanted to show some. Oh, thank you. I hope your little one goes to bed easy. My husband put the boys down to bed tonight. Whew. And yesterday night. 2 nights in a row I didn't have to put the kids down. So I'm good. But I hope your kiddo goes to bed easy. And I appreciate you stopping by. Okay. No sign of him. Then, as he's about to lose hope, he hears Fry. He turns his head and listens again. I think you forgot what Candace told them about the Ligma vaccine they need to get. I know, I forgot that part too. Oh my god, you said it right. I'm Mariana on FB. Oh, hi! Okay. I can see a face to the username now. I'm so glad you stopped by. I'm gonna have to remember. If you end up having to remind me, I am sorry. There's a lot of usernames I'm trying to remember at the moment. Yes, your little one is so cute. Give him a hug for me. Okay. He turns his head and listens again. Fry, over here. This time he can tell where it's coming from. A playground to his right. You're such a cute reader. Oh, thanks. Oh, I could be cuter. Here. We can be more adorable.
and steel poles painted blue, there are no children playing. The only sign of life is the tip of Sci-Fi's shoe poking out from behind the slide. Lev crosses through a hedge, steps down into the sand that surrounds the playground, and circles the apparatus until Sci-Fi comes into view. I'm the English teacher.
Yes! Let's go. I am an English teacher now. So, class, back in chapter 1. I'm just kidding. We'll continue. Lev almost wants to back away from what he sees. Sai is curled, knees to chest, like a baby. The left side of his face is twitching, and his left hand quivers like gelatin. Oh, I remember why he steals! No, stop. Now I can't put away the leftover dinner. Well, here.
What is it? What's wrong? Tell me. Maybe I can help you. Nothing, Sci-Fi hisses. I'll be alright. But to Lev, he looks like he's dying. In his shaking left hand, Sci-Fi holds the ornament he stole. I didn't steal this, he says.
Sci.
I said I didn't steal this! He smashes the heel of his right hand against the side of his head. It wasn't me, okay? Whatever you say. Lev looks around to make sure they're unobserved.
Okay, I'm gonna stop now. Sai quiets down a bit. Cyrus Fitch doesn't steal. Never did, never will. It's not my style. He says it even as he looks at the evidence right there in his hand. But in a second, the evidence is gone. Sci-Fi raises his right fist and smashes it into his left palm, shattering the bulb. Gold glass tinkles to the ground. Blood begins to ooze from his left palm and right knuckles. Sai, your hand. Don't worry about that, he says. I want you to do something for me, Fry. Do it before I change my mind. Lev nods. See my coat over there? I want you to take a look in the pocket. Sci-Fi's heavy coat is a few yards away, tossed over the seat of a swing. Lev goes to the swing set and picks up the coat. He reaches into an inside pocket and finds, of all things, a gold cigarette lighter. He pulls it out. Is that it, Sci? You want a cigarette? If a cigarette would bring Sci-Fi out of this, Lev would be the first to light it for him. There are things far more illegal than cigarettes, anyway. Check the other pockets. Lev searches the other pockets for a pack of cigarettes, but there are none. Instead, he finds a small treasure trove. Jeweled earrings, watches, a gold necklace, a diamond bracelet. Things that shimmer and shine, even in the dim daylight. Sai, what did you do? I already told you, it wasn't me. Now go take all that stuff and get rid of it. Get rid of it and don't let me see where you put it. Then he covers his eyes like it's a game of hide and seek. Go, before he changes my mind. Lev pulls everything out of the pocket, and cradling it in his arms, he runs to the far end of the playground. He digs in the cold sand and drops it all in, kicking sand back over it. When he's done, you know what? Some kid's gonna have a really fun day finding that the fucking part. He smooths it over with the side of his shoe and drops a scattering of leaves above it. He goes back to Sci-Fi, who's sitting there just like Lev left him, hands over his face. It's done, Lev says. You can look now. When Sai takes his hands away, there's blood all over his face from the cuts on his hands. Sai stares at his hands and looks at Lev helplessly. Like a kid who just got hurt in a playground. Lev half expects him to cry. You wait here, Lev says. I'll go get some bandages. He knows he'll have to steal them. He wonders what Pastor Dan would say about all these things. He's been stealing lately. Thank you, Fry, Sai said. You did good, and I ain't gonna forget it. The old umber lilt is back in his voice. The twitching has stopped. Sure thing, says Lev, with a comforting smile, and he heads off to find a pharmacy. What Sci-Fi doesn't know is that Lev has kept a single diamond bracelet, which he now hides in his inside pocket of his not-so-white jacket. Lev finds him a place to sleep that night. It's the best they've had yet, a motel room. Finding it wasn't all that hard to do. He scouted out a rundown motel without many cars out front. So I do want to stop and interject. Anybody who did hear that last paragraph, remember earlier in the story, Sai was telling Lev how a car hit him when he was a kid and he messed up his whole front temporal lobe. And mind you, the front area of your brain is control of your decision making and your impulsivity and all that stuff, I believe. So that was the part of his brain that he got from an unwound. And he didn't just get brain bits. And now there's a reason they do brain bits. He got a whole lobe. So keep that in mind. Just then, Sai lost his accent. He started acting differently. And he went and stole that Christmas bauble. Why do you think that is? So it's interesting to think about the fact that someone else's whole front temporal lobe is in his brain. It's not too far to think that way that person acted, the choices they made with that part of their brain, Sai now has to deal with. So, I mean, yeah, he didn't go brain dead or whatever happens when you lose that chunk of your brain. He's functioning, but now it's he's sharing his brain with somebody else. That's insane. So, if that was actually able to happen, that'd be crazy. Lev finds him a place to sleep that night. It's the best they've had yet, a motel room. Finding it wasn't all that hard to do. He scouted out a rundown motel without many cars out front. Then it was just a matter of finding an unlocked bathroom window and an unoccupied room. As long as they kept the curtains drawn and the lights off, no one would know they were there. My genius keeps rubbing off on you, Sci-Fi tells him. Sai's back to his old self, like the incident that morning never happened. Only it did happen, and they both know it. Outside, they hear a car door open. Lev and Sai prepare to bolt if a key turns in the motel room lock, but it's another door they hear opening, a few rooms away. Sai shakes out his tension, but Lev doesn't relax. Not yet. I want to know about today, Lev says. It's not a question, it's a request. Sai is unconcerned. Ancient history, he says. Leave the past in the past and live for a moment. That's wisdom you can take to the grave and dig up when you need it. What if I dig it up right now? Lev takes a moment to let it sink in. Then he reaches into his pocket and pulls out the diamond bracelet. He holds it in front of him, making sure the street light spilling through a slit in the curtains catches the diamonds so they glisten. Where'd you get that? Sci-Fi's voice has lost all of the playfulness it had only a second ago. I kept it, Lev says calmly. I thought it might come in handy. I told you to get rid of it. It wasn't yours to get rid of. After all, you said it yourself. You didn't steal it. Lev twists the bracelet so a diamond refracts a sparkle of light right into Sci-Fi's eye. Without the room lights on, Lev can't see much, but he swears he sees Sci-Fi's cheek starting to twitch. Sci-Fi stands up, looming over Lev. Lev stands as well, a full head shorter than Sci-Fi. You take that out of my face, says Sci-Fi, or I swear I'm gonna pound you into pork rinds. Lev thinks he might actually do it too. Sci-Fi clenches his fists. With the bandages, he looks like a boxer, hands wrapped before putting on the gloves. Still, Lev doesn't back down. He just dangles the bracelet. It sends little twinkling lights flitting around the room like a lazy disco ball. I'll put it away if you tell me why this bracelet and all those other things wound up in your pockets. Put it away first, and then I'll tell you. Fair enough. Lev slips the bracelet back into his pocket and waits, but Sci-Fi isn't talking. So Lev gives him a little prompt. What's his name? Lev asks. Or is it a she? Sci-Fi's shoulders slump in defeat. He crumples into a chair. Lev can't see his face at all now in the darkness, so Lev listens closely to his voice. As long as it still sounds like Sai's voice, he knows that Sai's okay. Lev sits himself on the edge of the bed, a few feet away from Sai, and listens. It's a he, Sai says. I don't know his name. He must have kept his name in another part of his brain. All I got with his right temporal lobe. That's only 1/8 of the cerebral cortex, so I'm 7/8 me and 1/8 him. I figured that was it. Lev had realized what was going on with Sai even before he stole the bandages from the pharmacy. Sai gave him the clue himself. do it before he changes my mind, Sai had said. So, he was a shoplifter? He was a klepto. He had problems. I guess those problems are why his parents had him unwound in the first place. Oh, so instead of therapy, instead of getting their children therapy, they're like, nope, let's get him unwound. That'll fix him right up. God, these parents are astounding. Oh, wow. That sucks. Sci-Fi laughs bitterly at that. Yeah, Fry, it does. It's kind of like what happened to my brother, Ray, says Lev. He went to this government auction thing, ended up with 10 acres on a lake, and it cost next to nothing. Then he finds out the land came with a bunker full of toxic chemicals seeping into the ground. Now, he owned it, so now it was his problem. Cost him almost 10 times the cost of the land to clean up the chemicals. Sucker, says Sai. Yeah, but then those chemicals weren't in his brain. Sai looks down for a moment. He's not a bad kid. He's just hurting. Hurting real bad. The way Sai's talking, it's like the kid is still there, right in the room with him. He's got this urge about him to grab things, like an addiction, Shiny things mostly. He's a shark. He took the freaking right front temporal lobe of a shark, because they like shiny things too. Don't wear shiny jewelry in the ocean, folks. Just don't do it. I guess the sharks think it's scales or something. He is Harry Potter. Yeah, that's right. He's Harry Potter. Avada Kedavra, bitch. Avada Kedavra, bitch. Alright. Shiny things mostly. It's not like he really wants them. It's just that he kind of needs to snap them up. I figured he's a kleptomaniac. That means... hell. You know what it means. What is the one that summons things? Lumos summons light. Stupefy makes people turn into a plank. Wingardium Leviosa is the thingy that makes shit fly. He's a kitty cat, yes. Meow. I like tuna, I like liver, I might like meow mix that delivers. Meow, 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 meow. Harry Potter would probably be like a CO gold if he thought he could get away with it. A ferret. We used to have ferrets. They poop a lot. They poop a lot. So he talks to you? No, not really. I don't get that part of him that uses words. I get feelings mostly. Sometimes images, but usually just feelings. Urges. When I get an urge, I don't know where it's coming from. I know it's from him. Like the time I saw this Irish setter on the street, and I wanted to go over and pet it. I'm not a dog person, see? But all of a sudden, I just had to pet that pooch. Coffee mug said it. A CO. You could be like a CO meow mix. Oh, that's true. A CO meow mix. Okay, I get it now. I'm a dumb sometimes, okay? Now that Sai is talking about it, he can't stop. It's all spilling out like water over a dam. Petting that dog was one thing, but the stealing is another. The stealing makes me mad. I mean, here I am, a law-abiding citizen, never took nothing that didn't belong to me my whole life, and now I'm stuck with this. There's people out there, like that lady in the Christmas store. They see an Umber kid like me and they automatically assume I'm up to no good. And now, thanks to this kid in my head, they're right. And you want to know what's funny? The kid was like Lily Sienna, like you. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Hearing that surprises Lev. Not the description, but the fact that Sai can describe him at all. You know what he looked like? Sci-Fi nods. I can see him sometimes. It's hard, but sometimes I can. I close my eyes and imagine myself looking into a mirror. Usually I see myself reflected, but once in a while I can see him. It's only for an instant. Kind of like trying to catch a bolt of lightning after you've already seen the flash. But other people, they don't see him when he steals. It's me they see. My hands grabbing. The people who matter know it's not you. Your dads, they don't even know about this, Sai says. They think they did me a favor sticking me with this brain chunk. If I told them about it, they'd feel guilty until the end of time, so I can't tell them. Lev doesn't know what to say. Ferrets steal everything. Oh, there we go. Then he's a ferret. That's true. They're so cute, but they are mischievous little fucks. Lev doesn't know what to say. He wishes he'd never brought it up. He wishes he hadn't insisted on knowing. But most of all, he wishes Sai didn't have to deal with this. He's a good guy. He deserves a better break. And this kid, he doesn't even understand he's part of me, Sai says. It's like these ghosts that don't know they're dead. He keeps trying to be him and can't understand why the rest of him ain't there. All of a sudden, Lev realizes something. He lived in Joplin, didn't he? Sai doesn't answer for a long time. That's how Lev knows it's true. Finally, Sai says, there are things he's still got locked up in my brain that I can't get at. All I know is that he's got to get to Joplin, so I gotta get there too. Once we're there, maybe he'll leave me alone. Sci-Fi shifts his shoulders. Not in a shrug, but in an uncomfortable roll, like when you get an itch in your back or a sudden shiver. I don't want to talk about him no more. His 1/8 feels a whole lot bigger when I spend time hanging around in his gray matter. Lev wants to put his arm around Sai's shoulder, like an older brother to comfort him, but he just can't bring himself to do it. So instead, he pulls the blanket from the bed and wraps it around Sai as he sits in the chair. What's this all about? Just making sure you two stay warm. And then he says, don't worry about anything. I've got it all under control. Sci-Fi laughs. You? You can't even take care of yourself, and now you think you're going to take care of me? If it weren't for me, you'd still be chowing down on other folks' garbage back at the mall. That's right, but you helped me. Now it's my turn to do the same for you, and I'm going to get you to Joplin. Chapter 22, Risa. Now we're back with Risa and Connor. We're going to see what shenanigans they're up to. That was a long chapter. Chapter 22, Risa. I already said that. Risa Megan Ward watches everything around her closely and carefully. She's seen enough at State Ho to know that survival rests on how observant you are. For 3 weeks, she, Connor, and a mixed bag of unwinds have been shuttled from one safe house to another. It's maddening, for there seems to be no end in sight to this relentless underground railroad of refugees. There are dozens of kids being moved around, but there are never more than 5 or 6 at a time in any given safe house, and Risa rarely sees the same kids twice. The only reason she and Connor have been able to stay together is because they pose as a couple. It's practical, and it serves both their interests. What's that expression? The devil you know is better than the one you don't? Finally, they're dumped in a huge, empty warehouse in a thundering air traffic zone. Cheap realty for hiding unwanted kids. It's a Spartan building with a corrugated steel roof that shakes so badly when a plane passes overhead, she half expects it to collapse. There are almost 30 kids here when they arrive. Many of them are kids. Risa and Connor had come... That was one sentence. Many of them are kids Risa and Connor had come across over the past few weeks. This is a holding tank, she realizes, a place where all the kids are warehoused in preparation for some final journey. There are chains on the doors to keep anyone unwanted out, and to keep anyone too rebellious in. There are space heaters that are useless, since all the heat is lost to the high warehouse roof. There's only one bathroom with a broken lock, and unlike many of the safe houses, there's no shower, so personal hygiene is put on hold the moment they arrive. Put all that together with a gang of scared, angry kids, and you've got a powder keg waiting to explode. Perhaps that's why the people who run the show all carry guns. There are 4 men and 3 women in charge. Oh, I got to go. I think you might have a niche with a pleasant audiobook voice. I usually hate audiobooks, so that is a major loving compliment from my end. Good night, Ranger. Oh, thank you so much, Meow Rena. Meow Rena. I hope you have a really good night, and I hope your kiddo stays asleep all night and you get the best sleep of your life. And you know what? I'll look into that. Maybe that is something I can do. Huh. Now I'm curious. Let's go. Hold on. There are 4 men and 3 women in charge, all of them militarized versions of the folks who, like Sonia, run the safe houses. Everyone calls them the Fatigues, not just because they have a penchant towards khaki military clothing, but also because they've always seemed exhausted. Even so, they have a high-tension determination about them that Risa admires. A handful of new kids arrives almost every day. Risa watches each group of arrivals with interest and notices that Connor does too. She knows why. "You're looking for Lev too, aren't you?" she finally says to him. He shrugs. "Maybe I'm just looking for the Akron AWOL like everyone else." That makes Risa chuckle. Even in the safe houses they have heard the inflated rumors of an AWOL from Akron who escaped from a juvie cop by turning his own tranq pistol against him. "Maybe he's on his way here," kids would whisper around the warehouse, like they were talking about a celebrity. Risa has no idea how the rumor started, since it was never in the news. She's also a bit annoyed that she's not included in the rumor. It ought to be a Bonnie and Clyde kind of thing. The rumor mill is definitely sexist. "So are you ever going to tell them that you're the Akron AWOL?" she quietly asks Connor. "I don't want that kind of attention. Besides, they wouldn't believe me anyway. They're all saying the Akron AWOL is this big bow superhero. I don't want to disappoint them." Lev doesn't show up with any of the batches of new kids. The only thing that arrives with them is an increase of tension. 43 kids by the end of their first week, and there's still 1 bathroom, no shower, and no answer as to how long this will last. Restlessness hangs as heavy as body odor in the air. The Fatigues do their best to keep them all fed and occupied, if only to minimize friction. There are a few crates of games, incomplete decks of cards, and dog-eared books that no library wanted. There are no electronics, no balls, nothing that would create or encourage noise. "The people out there hear you, you're all done for," the Fatigues remind them as often as they can. Risa wonders if the Fatigues have lived lives separate and apart from saving Unwinds, or if this endeavor is their life's work. "What are you doing? Why are you doing this for us?" Risa asks one of them during their second week. The Fatigue had been almost rote in her answer, like giving a soundbite to a reporter. "Saving you and others like you is an act of conscience," the woman had said. "Doing it is its own reward." The Fatigues all talk like that. Big picture speak, Risa calls it. Seeing the whole and none of the parts. It's not just in their speech, but in their eyes as well. When they look at Risa, she can tell they don't really see her. They seem to see the mob of Unwinds more as a concept, rather than a collection of anxious kids. And so they miss all the subtle social tremors that shake things just as powerfully as the jets shake the roof. By the end of the second week, Risa has a pretty good idea where trouble is brewing. It all revolves around one kid she hoped she'd never see again, but he had turned up shortly after she and Connor arrived. Roland. Of all the kids here, he is by far the most potentially dangerous. The troubling thing is that Connor hasn't exactly been the image of emotional stability himself this past week. He'd been all right in the safe houses. He held his temper. He hadn't done anything too impulsive or irrational. Here, however, in the midst of so many kids, he's different. He's irritable and defiant. The slightest thing could set him off. He'd been in 6 fights already. She knows this must be why his parents choose to have him unwound. A firestorm temper can drive some parents to desperate measures. Common sense tells Risa to distance herself from him. Their alliance has been out of necessity, but there's no reason to ally herself with him anymore. Yet day after day, she keeps finding herself drawn to him and worried about him. She approaches him shortly after breakfast one day, determined to open his eyes to a clear, present danger. He's sitting by himself, etching a portrait into the concrete floor with a rusty nail. Risa wishes she could say it was good, but Connor's not much of an artist. It disappoints her, because she desperately wants to find something redeeming about him. What is that supposed to mean? I feel like that's her like her ward upbringing talking, because in the ward they were only given worth if they got really, really good at their chosen practice. So like for Risa, she was the pianist, but she wasn't the best pianist, so they sent her to be unwound because, you know, they needed more room in the state wards. So I wonder if that, like, her trying to find a redeeming quality is her upbringing in the state. Like trying to say, like, Connor's only worth being around if he has at least one thing that he's good at. Which is kind of messed up, but I mean, these kids are a product of their environment. So at the same time, like, I can see why she thinks that, because she probably feels like she doesn't have worth because she didn't make it as one of the special kids, even though she was really good at what she did. Okay. If he were an artist, they could relate on a creative level. She could talk to him about her passion for music, and he would get it. As it is, she doesn't think he even knows or cares that she plays piano. But my whole thing is, like, has she told him? Has she told him? There's a little bit too much going on for casual conversation right now. He's like, okay, Risa, what's your favorite hobby to do on this beautiful day while we're enjoying this beautiful lunch? Like, no. There is way too much shit going on for Connor to think about. What kind of instrument do you play? Who are you drawing? She asks. Just a girl I knew back home, he says. Risa silently suffocates her jealousy in a quick emotional vacuum. Someone you cared about? Sort of. Risa takes a better look at the sketch. Her eyes are too big for her face. I guess that's just because it's her eyes that I remember the most. She said that, by the way. And her forehead's too low. The way you've drawn it, she'd have no room for her brain. Yeah, well, she wasn't all that bright. Risa laughs at that and it makes Connor smile. When he smiles, it's hard to imagine he's the same guy who got into all those fights. She gauges whether or not he'd be open to hear what she has to tell him. He looks away from her. Is there something you want, or are you just an art critic today? I was wondering why you're sitting by yourself. Ah, so you're also my shrink. We're supposed to be a couple if we're going to keep up the image. You can't be entirely antisocial. Connor looks out over the groups of kids, busy in various morning activities. Risa follows his gaze. There's a group of kids who hate the world and spend all day spewing venom. There's a mouth-breathing kid who does nothing but read the same comic book over and over again. Mai is paired off with a glum, spike-haired boy named Vincent, who's all leather and body piercings. He must be her soulmate because they've made out all day long, drawing a cluster of other kids who sit there and watch. Weird. I don't want to be social, Connor says. I don't like the kids here. Why? Asked Risa. They're too much like you. They're losers. Yeah, that's what I mean. He gives her a half-hearted, dirty look, then looks down at his drawing, but she can tell he's not thinking about the girl. His head is somewhere else. If I'm off by myself, then I don't get into fights. He puts down the nail, giving up on his etching. I don't know what gets into me. Maybe it's all the voices. Maybe it's all the bodies moving around me. It makes me feel like I've got ants crawling inside my brain and I want to scream. I can stand it just so long that I blow. It happened even at home. Everyone was talking at once at the dinner table. One time we had family over and the talk got me so crazy, I hurled a plate at the china hutch. Glass blew everywhere. Ruined the meal. My parents asked me what got into me and I couldn't tell them. That Connor is willing to share this with her makes her feel good. It makes her feel closer to him. Maybe now that he has opened up, he'll stay open long enough to hear what she has to tell him. There's something I want to talk about. Yeah? Risa sits beside him, keeping her voice low. I want you to watch the other kids, where they go, who they talk to. All of them? Yeah, but one at a time. After a while, you start to notice things. Like what? Like the kids who eat first are the ones who spend the most time with Roland, but he never goes to the front of the line himself. Like the way his closest friends infiltrate the other cliques and get them arguing so they break apart. Like the way Roland is especially nice to the kids that everyone else feels sorry for, but only until nobody feels sorry for them anymore, and then he uses them. Sounds like you're doing a class project on him. I'm being serious. I've seen this before. He's power hungry, he's ruthless, and he's very, very smart. Connor laughs at that. Roland? He couldn't think himself out of a paper bag. No, but he could think everyone else into one, and then crush it. Clearly, that gives Connor pause for thought. Good, thinks Risa. He needs to think. He needs to strategize. Why are you telling me this? Because you're his biggest threat. Me? You're a fighter, and everyone knows that. And they also know that you don't take crap from anyone. Have you heard kids mumbling about how someone ought to do something about Roland? Yeah. They only say that when you're close enough to hear. They're expecting you to do something about him, and Roland knows it. He tries to wave her off, but she gets in his face. Listen to me, because I know what I'm talking about. Back at State Ho, there were always dangerous kids who bullied their way into power. They were able to do it because they knew exactly who to take down, and when. And the kid they took down the hardest was the one with the greatest potential for taking them down. She could see Connor curling his right hand into a fist. She knows she's not getting through to him. He's getting the wrong message. If he wants a fight, he'll get one. No, you can't take the bait. That's what he wants. He'll do everything within his power to pull you into a fight, but you can't do it. Connor hardens his jaw. You think I can't take him in a fight? Risa grabs his wrist and holds it tight. A kid like Roland doesn't want to fight you. He wants to kill you. Chapter 23, Connor. As much as Connor hates to admit it, Risa has been right about a lot of things. Her clarity of thought has saved them more than once, and now that he knows to look for it, her take on Roland's secret power structure is right on target. Roland is a master of structuring life around him for his own benefit. It's not the overt bullying that does it either. It's the subtle manipulation of the situation. The bullying almost acts as a cover for what's really going on. As long as people see him as a dumb and tough guy, they don't notice the more clever things he does. The man sees him giving his food to one of the younger kids, like a master chess player. Every move Roland makes has purpose, even if the purpose isn't immediately clear. Risa wasn't just right about Roland. She was also right about Lev, or at least the way Connor feels about the kid. Connor hasn't been able to get Lev out of his mind. For the longest time, he had convinced himself it was merely out of a desire for revenge, as if he couldn't wait to get even with him. By each time, a new group of kids shows up, and Lev isn't among them. A sense of despair worms its way through Connor's gut. It makes Connor angry that he feels this way, and he suspects this is part of the anger that fuels the fights he gets into. You know what, is anyone going to talk about the fact that guy earlier, or person came in earlier and just dropped a fucking spoiler and then dipped? It's like so bizarre. I don't know why I was thinking about that, but I was. The fact is, Levant hadn't just turned them in. He had turned himself in as well, which means that Lev is probably gone, unwound into nothing, his bones, his flesh, his mind, shredded and recycled. This is what Connor finds so hard to accept. Connor had risked his life to save Lev, just as Connor had done for the baby on the doorstep. Well, the baby had been saved, but Lev had not. And although he knows he can't be held responsible for Lev's unwinding, he feels as if it is his fault. So he stands there with secret anticipation each time there's a group of new arrivals, hoping beyond hope he'll find that self-righteous, self-important, pain-in-the-ass Lev still alive. I honestly forgot. Oh, that person that came... Yeah, no, it was funny, though. It was funny. They're probably the person that goes on to random people talking about movies. Well, this is what happened. Okay, bye. Like, the only interaction they have with anyone on Facebook is just movie and book spoilers and stuff. And that's it. That'd be funny, honestly, if that was someone's only purpose on the internet was to spoil things. Chapter 24. Risa. The Fatigues arrive with Christmas dinner an hour late. Crazy that Reese start a peanut butter chocolate cereal. Peanut butter chocolate cereal. That's too much peanut butter. I don't like peanut. It's funny because I like Reese's, but I don't like any other Reese's item, like the cereal. Like I don't usually do peanut butter. So, but the Reese's cup's like a perfect combination of peanut butter to chocolate, so it's okay. Okay. It's the same old slop, but the fatigues wear Santa hats. Impatient rules the evening. Everyone's so hungry, they crowd noisily around like it's a food delivery in a famine, and to make it worse, there are only 2 fatigues there tonight to serve the meal instead of the usual 4. Single line, yell the fatigues. There's enough for everybody. Ho, ho, ho. But tonight it's not a matter of getting enough. It's a matter of getting it now. Reese is just as hungry as the others, but she also knows that meals are the best time to have some privacy in the bathroom without someone bursting in through the unlocked door or simply pounding repeatedly until you get out faster. Tonight, with everyone clamoring for their holiday hash, there's no one at the bathroom at all. So putting her hunger on hold, she moves away from the crowd and across the warehouse toward the bathroom. Once inside, she hangs the makeshift occupied sign on the doorknob and pushes the door closed. She takes a moment to examine herself in the mirror, but she still doesn't like the straggly-haired, ragged girl she's become, so she doesn't look at herself for long. She washes her face, and since there are no towels, dries it with her sleeve. Then before she can even turn for the toilet, she hears a door creak open behind her. She turns and must stifle a gasp. It's Roland, who has entered the bathroom, and now he closes the door gently behind him. Risa immediately realizes her mistake. She should never have come here alone. "Get out," she says. She wishes she could sound more forceful in the moment, but he's caught her by surprise. "No need to be so harsh." Roland moves toward her in a slow, predatory stride. "We're all friends here, right? And since everyone's eating dinner, we've got some quality time to get to know each other." "Stay away from me!" Now she's scanning her options. She realizes in this tight of a space with only one door and nothing she can use as a weapon, her options are limited. Now he's dangerously close. Sometimes I like having dessert before dinner. How about you?" The second he's in range, she acts quickly to hit him, to knee him, to inflict any kind of pain that would distract him enough for her to fly out the door. His reflexes are simply too fast. He grabs her hand, pushes her back against the cold green tile wall, and presses his hip against her so that her knee can't reach its mark, and he grins, as if it was all so easy. His hand is on her cheek now. The shark tattooed on his forearm is inches away and seems ready to attack. "So what do you say we have some fun and make sure you don't get unwound for 9 months?" Risa has never been a screamer. The way she always saw it, screaming was a show of weakness, a sign of defeat. Now she has to admit defeat, for although she has lots of experience warding off creeps, Roland has even more experience being one, so she screams. She lets loose a blood curdler at the top of her lungs, but her timing is as bad as it could possibly be, because just then a jet roars by overhead, shaking the walls and completely swallowing her screams. "You gotta learn to enjoy life," Roland says. "Let's call this Lesson 1. That's when the door swings open, and over Roland's massive shoulder, Risa sees Connor standing at the threshold, eyes blazing. She's never been happier to see anyone. "Connor, stop him!" Roland sees him too, catching his reflection in the bathroom mirror, but he doesn't release Risa. "Well," says Roland, "isn't this awkward?" Connor makes no move to tear him away. He just stands there on the threshold. His eyes still rage, but his hands, they're not even clenched into fists. They just hang there limply by his side. What's wrong with him? Roland winks at Risa, then calls over his shoulder to Connor. "Better get out of here if you know what's good for you." Connor steps over the threshold, but he doesn't move toward them. Instead, he goes to the sink. "Mind if I wash up for dinner?" Risa waits for him to make a sharp and sudden move, catching Roland off guard, but he doesn't. He just washes his hands. "Your girlfriend's had her eyes on me since Sonia's basement," says Roland. "You know that, don't you?" Connor dries his hands on his pants. "You two can do whatever you like. Risa and I broke up this morning. Should I turn the light off when I leave?" Reverse psychology. The betrayal is so unexpected, so complete. Risa doesn't know who to hate more, Roland or Connor. But then Roland eases his grip on her. Well, now the mood's ruined, isn't it? He lets her go. Hell, I was kidding anyway. I wouldn't have done anything. He backs away and offers that smile of his again. How's about we wait until you're ready? Then he struts out just as boldly as he had come in, bumping Connor's shoulder on the way out as a parting shot. All of her confusion and frustration unleashes at Connor, and she pushes him back against the wall, shaking him. What was that? You were just going to let him do it? You're just going to stand there and let it happen? Connor pushes her off of him. Didn't you warn me not to take the bait? What? He didn't just follow you to the bathroom. He pushed past me first. He made sure I knew he was following you here. This whole thing wasn't about you. It was about me. Just like you said, he wanted me to catch him. He wanted to make me crazy, to get me fighting mad, so I didn't take the bait. Risa shakes her head, not in disbelief, but reeling from the truth of it. But what if he... But he didn't, did he? And now he won't. Because if he thinks you and I broke up, you're more useful to him if you're on his side. He might still be after you, but from now on, I'll bet he'll be killing you with kindness. All the emotions rebounding madly through Risa's finally come to rest in an unfamiliar place, and tears burst from her eyes. Connor steps forward to comfort her, but she pushes him away with the same force she would have used against Roland. Get out, she yells. Just get out. Connor throws up his hands, frustrated. Fine, I guess I should have just gone to dinner and not come in here at all. He leaves and she closes the door behind him. In spite of the line of kids now waiting for the bathroom, she sits down on the floor, her back against the door so no one can get in as she tries to get her emotions under control. Connor had done the right thing. For once, he had seen the situation more clearly than she, and he had probably ensured that Roland wouldn't physically threaten her again, at least for a while. And yet, there's a part of her that can't forgive him for just standing there. After all, heroes are supposed to behave in very specific ways. They're supposed to fight, even if it means risking their lives. This is the moment Risa realizes, even with all his troubles, she sees Connor as a hero. Chapter 25, Connor. We are making good progress tonight. Ooh, 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 ooh. Holding his temper in the bathroom was perhaps the hardest thing Connor had ever had to do. Even now, as he storms away from Risa, he wants to lay into Roland, but blind rage is not what the moment needs, and Connor knows it. Risa's right. A brutal, all-out fight is exactly what Roland wants, and Connor's heard from some of the other kids that Roland has fashioned himself a knife out of some metal he found laying around the warehouse. If Connor launches at him with a rage of swinging fists, Roland will find a way to end it with a single deadly thrust, and he'll be able to get away with it, claiming it was self-defense. Sneaky, sneaky, manipulative bitch! Cold coffee. Yummy. Whether Connor can take him in a fight isn't the question. Even against a knife, Connor suspects he might be able to either turn the blade against him or take Roland out in some other way before he has the chance to use it. The question is this: is Connor willing to enter a battle that must end with none of them dead? Connor might be a lot of things, but he's no killer, so he holds his temper and plays it cool. This is new territory for him. The fighter in him screams foul, but another side of him, a side that's growing steadily stronger, enjoys this exercise of silent power, and it is power. Because Roland now behaves exactly the way he and Risa want him to. Connor sees Roland offer his dessert to Risa that night as an apology. She doesn't accept it, of course, but it doesn't change the fact that he offered it. It's as if Roland thinks his attack on her could be wiped away by feigning remorse. Not because he's actually sorry for what he did, but because it serves Roland's need to treat her well now. He has no idea that Risa and Connor have him on an invisible leash. Connor knows it will only be a matter of time, however, until he chews his way through it. Part 4! Part 4! So, this is the third stream of reading. We ran through part 3. Do you guys want me to continue? How many parts are there? Oh yeah, part 5 is a good dip away. There's part 5. I don't think there's a part 6. Yeah, there is a part 6. Unwound. Continue. I like the background audio. Okay, I can do that. I like it. Part 4. Destinations. Now, remember, these little bits at the beginning of each part is a real thing that happened. Real thing. So, the following is a response from eBay with regard to a seller's attempt to auction his soul online in 2001. Thank you for taking the time to write eBay with your concerns. I'm happy to help you further. If the soul does not exist, eBay could not allow the auctioning of the soul because there would be nothing to sell. However, if the soul does exist, then in accordance with eBay's policy on human parts and remains, we would not allow the auctioning of human souls. The soul would be considered human remains, and although it is not specifically stated on the policy page, human souls are still not allowed to be listed on eBay. Your auction was removed appropriately and will not be reinstated. Please do not relist this item with us in the future. You may review our policy at the following link. And then it's like their policies. It is my pleasure to assist you. Thank you for choosing eBay. Chapter 26. Pawnbroker. The man... Oh, I'm sorry. Part 4 was called Destinations. The man inherited the pawn shop from his brother, who had died of a heart attack. He wouldn't have kept the place, but he inherited it while he was unemployed. Figured it could keep it and run it until he could find a better job. That was 20 years ago. Now he knows it's a life sentence. Okay, but that is low-key hilarious. Isn't it? Like, how do you auction off your soul? Was this guy hoping to, like, auction off his soul to, like, the devil? Like, ha ha ha. The devil will definitely want my measly little soul. I don't know. It's crazy. And I think I did Google that. Man tries to sell soul on eBay. Man tries to sell his soul on eBay. This is okay. Dante Knox, a musician fed up with his life, was yesterday barred from selling his soul to the highest bidder. Dante Knox offered the used item for a starting bid of £25,000 or a buy-it-now price of £700,000 on the auction site eBay. But eBay pulled the listing yesterday with about 2 hours to go and no bids because it breached one of the firm's policies. You cannot sell anything that is not physical, said Mr. Knox. That includes ghosts, souls, and spirits, which is funny. I have been refunded, but I had 200 people watching it. I'm really disappointed by that. So this was a different instance back in like 2008. Lucifer bid 69 cents. 69. He bid $6.66. Or $66.60. Yeah, that's crazy. How are you, Arch? How'd your stream go earlier, Bean? Lucifer bid 69 cents. Oh, that is funny. It's like Demon 1 bid 70 cents. Demon 2 bid 71 cents. It was good. I'm glad. Now he knows it's a life sentence. A boy comes into his shop one evening before closing, or even 67 cents rounded up from like 66.6 cents. Yes. I mean, if you're desperate for money. Yeah. A boy comes into his shop one evening before closing. Not his usual type of customer. Most folks come into a pawn shop down on their luck, ready to trade in everything they own, from TVs to family heirlooms in exchange for a little quick cash. Some do it for drugs. Others have more legitimate reasons. Either way, the pawnbroker's success is based on the misery of others. It doesn't bother him anymore. He's grown used to it. I didn't even think about it like that. This boy is different, though. Sure, there are kids who come in, hoping to get a deal on items they were never claimed, but there's something about this kid that's markedly off. He looks more clean-cut than the kids that usually turn up in the store. And the way he moves, even the way he holds himself, is refined and graceful, deliberate and delicate. Like he's lived his life as a prince and is now pretending to be the pauper. He wears a puffy white coat, but it's a bit dirty. Maybe he's the pauper after all. The TV on the counter plays a football game, but the pawnbroker isn't watching the game anymore. His eyes are on it, but his mind keeps track of the kid as he meanders. That's a good word too, meanders. I like that word. Chipmunk 09 played Hello There. Hello, did it play? I didn't hear it. Do I not have my sound alerts? Oh no, they're on. Oh, I know why. It did. It's because I know why. I have my audio set to my headphones. I'll put it back. I didn't hear it, not gonna lie. I know why it didn't work now though, so we're good. It's because your mind is tuned just to listen to the frequency of my voice, so you don't hear anything else, just my voice. That's my magical power.
Hello there.
Hello there. There we go. So real, right? Yes, that was me. Hello there. Cool, it works. Awesome. How are you doing tonight? Chimpkin09. I hope your night's going well. I appreciate the hello there. After a few minutes, the kid approaches the counter. It's okay. Oh, I hope it gets better. I don't know if it's nighttime for you, but I hope when you go to bed tonight, you get the most amazing sleep of your life to make up for the day being okay. Being okay is better than bad, so that's a plus. What can I do for you? The pawnbroker asked, genuinely curious. This is a pawn shop, isn't it? Doesn't it say so on the door? So that means you trade things for money, right? The pawnbroker sighs. The kid's just ordinary after all, just a little more naive than the other kids who show up here trying to hawk their baseball card collections or whatever. Usually they want money for cigarettes or alcohol or something else they don't want their parents to know about. This kid doesn't look like the type for that though. We loan money and take objects as value as collateral, he tells the kid. And we don't do business with minors. You want to buy something, fine, but you can't pawn anything here, so take your baseball cards somewhere else. Who said I have baseball cards? The kid reaches into his pocket and pulls out a bracelet, all diamonds and gold. The pawnbroker's eyes all but pop out of his skull as the kid dangles it from his fingers. Then the pawnbroker laughs. 4:52. I'm dying. A.M. Oh! Chimkin09, get some sleep if you can. Unless you can't sleep, because I hate nights like that. It's 12:52 for me. I need to clean some things and do my 11-page homework assignment. Oh, damn. That's a lot of homeworks. I hope it's not due tomorrow. Today for you. Right? Almost today. The kid's expression. What'd you do? Steal that from your mommy, kid? The kid's expression stays diamond hard. How much do you give me for it? How about a nice boot out the door? Still, the kid shows no sign of fear or disappointment. He just lays the bracelet on the worn wooden counter with the same princely grace. Why don't you just put that thing away and go home? I'm an Unwind. What? You heard me. This throws the pawnbroker for a loop for a whole lot of reasons. First of all, runaway unwinds who show up at his shop never admit it. Secondly, they always appear desperate and angry, and the stuff they have to sell is shoddy at best. They're never this calm, and they never look this angelic. You're an Unwind? The boy nods. The bracelet is stolen, but not from anywhere around here. Unwinds also never admit that their items are stolen. Due at 8:05! Oh, geez. Okay, well, I guess I will continue to read, and maybe my voice will give you little magical sprinkles of haste so you work a little bit faster. Only 8% faster, though. We don't want you to work too fast, and it's cheating. And oh my god, 4:52. Yeah, for Chimpkin 09, that's very early. That's like waking up time some days for me. If I'm lucky, the boys let me sleep until 7. Those other kids always come up with the most elaborate stories as to who they are and why they're selling. The pawnbroker will usually listen to their stories for their entertainment value. If it's a good story, he'll just throw the kid out. If it's a lousy story, he'll call the police and have them picked up. Unwind's never admit that their item is stolen. Who does? For real. Oh no! Well, I guess you could sleep. I slept in class, but I'm not condoning that. Don't sleep in class. Unless it's a boring teacher, then sleep in class. What? Unwinds also never admit that their items are stolen. I already read that. This kid, however, doesn't have a story. He comes only with the truth. The pawnbroker doesn't quite know how to deal with the truth. So, says the kid, are you interested? The pawnbroker just shrugs. Who you are is your business, and like I said, I don't deal with minors. Maybe you'll make an exception. The pawnbroker considers the kid, considers the bracelet, and looks at the door to make sure no one else is coming in. I'm listening. Here's what I want. $500 cash. Now, then I leave like we never met, and you can keep the bracelet. The pawnbroker puts on his well-practiced poker face. Are you kidding me? This piece of junk? Gold plate? Zircons instead of diamonds? Poor workmanship? I'll give you $100, not a penny more. The kid never breaks eye contact. You're lying. It's a lovely Wednesday. Wednesday. We wear pink on Wednesdays, bitches. And I'm not in... I am wearing pink! Oh! We wear pink on Wednesdays, bitches. You stole the Twitch account from who? A coffee mug with 1 G? You stole it and then added 2 more G's? Is that how that works? Arch Genie. On Wednesdays we wear pink. I'll stop.
Yeah, take it away, Ernie. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
I like the sounds. The sounds are nice. I'll be in my cupboard, making no noise and pretending like I don't exist. For pow! I don't know where I left off. Of course the pawnbroker is lying from a teacup and used it for coffee. That's valid. But he resents the accusation. How about if I turn you into the juvie cops right now? The kid reaches down and takes the bracelet from the table. You could, he says, but then you won't get this. The police will. The pawnbroker strokes his beard. Maybe this kid isn't as naive as he looks. If I were a piece of junk, the kid says, you wouldn't have offered me 100. I bet you wouldn't have offered me anything. He looks at the bracelet dangling from his fingers. I really don't know what something like this is worth, but I bet it's worth thousands. And all I'm asking is 500, which means whatever it's worth, you're getting a great deal. The pawnbroker's poker face is gone. He can't stop staring at the bracelet. It's all he can do not to drool over it. He knows what it's really worth, or at least he can guess. He knows where he can fence it himself for 5 times what the kid is asking. That would be a nice bit of change. Enough to take his wife on that long vacation she's always wanted. 250. That's my final offer. 500. You have 3 seconds, and then I leave. 1, 2, deal. The pawnbroker sighs as if he's been beaten. What are you crocheting? Oh my god, I wish I had the patience to do shit like that. There's this person that I'm friends with on Facebook, and they have chickens, like them and their wife. They have chickens, and they made a fucking scarf and a hat for their chickens. Oh! I did it myself. Yee. And I do not have the patience. I have been making this one for like 3 months and still only made like oh, see, I would have given up by that point. Would have been like, fuck this project, and would have either thrown it away or gave it to somebody else to finish, because I have a bad habit of doing that. I am gonna sell it. Oh, well, hell yeah. You know what? I hope you have all of the motivation to finish the entire blanket this week. Coffee Mug's like, oh god, no. Same. Yes. Okay. Deal. The pawnbroker sighs as if he's been beaten. You drive a hard bargain, kid. That's the way these things are played. Make the kid think that he won, when all the whiles he's the one who's truly being robbed. The pawnbroker reaches for the bracelet, but the kid holds it out of reach. First, the money. The safe's in the back room. I'll be back in a second. I'll come with you. The pawnbroker doesn't argue. It's understandable that the kid doesn't trust him. If he trusted people, he had been unwound by now. In the back room, the pawnbroker positions himself with the kid behind him, so the kid can't see the combination of the safe. He pulls open the door, and the second he does, he feels something hard and heavy connecting with his head. His thoughts are instantly scrambled. Coffee Mug, thank you for the gifted sub. What voice should we read this book in? You get to pick a lovely voice. Loves for Coffee Mug. Coffee Mug, do you stream? Should I give you a shout out? Ayy. So, I don't know. We can do I haven't in a good minute. Making a noise and pretending like I don't exist. Yes, this is my bedroom, and I don't exist. We can do robot. How does a robot sound? I am a robot. I am a robot. Sure. Okay, let me set a timer. Okay, let's go. He feels something hard and heavy connecting with his head. His thoughts are instantly scrambled. He loses consciousness before he hits the ground. The pawnbroker comes to sometime later with a headache and a faint memory that something had gone wrong. It takes a few seconds for him to pull himself together and realize exactly what happened. That little monster conned him. He got him to open the safe, and the moment he did, he knocked him out and cleaned out the safe. Sure enough, the safe is open wide. But it's not entirely empty. Inside is the bracelet. Its gold and diamonds looking even brighter against the ugly gray steel of the empty safe. How much money had been in the safe? 1,500 tops? This bracelet is worth at least 3 times that. Still a deal, and the kid knew it. The pawnbroker rubs the painful knot on his head, furious at the kid for what he did, and yet admiring him for the strangely honorable nature of the crime. If he himself had been this clever, this honorable, and had found this kind of nerve when he was a kid, perhaps he'd be more than just a pawnbroker. 27. Connor. The morning after the bathroom incident, they're rousted awake by the fatigues before dawn. Everybody up, now! Move it, move it! They're loud, they're on edge, and the first thing Connor notices is that the safeties on their weapons are off. Still bleary from sleep, he rises and looks for Risa. He sees her already being herded by 2 fatigues toward a huge double door that has always been padlocked. Now, the padlock is off. Leave your things, go, move it, move it! To his right, a cranky kid pushes a fatigue for tearing away his blanket. The fatigue hits him on the shoulder with the butt of his rifle. Not enough to seriously wound him, but enough to make it clear to the kid and everyone else that they mean business. The kid goes down on his knees, gripping his shoulders and cursing, and the fatigue goes about the business of hurting the others. Even in his pain, the kid looks ready for a fight. As Connor passes him, Connor grabs him by the arm and helps him up. Take it easy, Connor says. Don't make it worse. The kid pulls out of Connor's grip. Get off me! I don't need your stinking help. The kid storms away. Connor shakes his head. Was he ever that belligerent? Up ahead, the huge double doors are slid open to reveal another room of the warehouse that the Unwinds had never seen. This one is filled with crates. Old airline packing crates designed both in shape and durability to transport goods by air freight. Connor immediately realizes what they're for and why he and the others have been warehoused so close to an airport. Wherever they're going as air cargo. Girls to the left, boys to the right. Move it, move it! They're grumbling, but no direct defiance. Connor wonders how many kids get what's going on. 4 to a crate, boys with boys, girls with girls. Move it, move it! Now everyone begins to scramble around, trying to team up with their preferred travel companions. But the fatigues have neither patience nor time for it. They randomly create groups of 4 and push them towards the crates. That's when Connor notices how dangerously close he is to Roland, and it's no accident. Roland moved close to him on purpose. Connor can just imagine it, pitch black in close quarters. If he's in a crate with Roland, then he'll be dead before takeoff. That would not be fun, to be in a crate with a dead body. Like, come on. Alright, we're gonna switch that off. Connor tries to move away, but a fatigue grabs Roland. Connor and two of Roland's known collaborators. You four, the crate over there. Connor tries not to let his panic show. He doesn't want Roland to see. He should have prepared his own weapon, like the one Roland certainly has concealed on him now. He should have prepared for the inevitability of a life or death confrontation, but he hadn't, and now his options are limited. No time for thinking this through, so he lets impulse take over and gives in to his fighting instincts. He turns to Roland's henchmen and punches one of them in the face, hard enough to draw blood, maybe even break his nose. The force of the punch spins the kid around, but before he can come back for a counter-assault, a fatigue grabs Connor and smashes him back against a concrete wall. The fatigue doesn't know it, but this is exactly what Connor wanted. You picked the wrong day to do that, kid, says the fatigue, holding him against the wall with his rifle. What are you going to do, kill me? I thought you were trying to save us. That gives the fatigue a moment's pause. Hey, yells another fatigue, forget him. We gotta load him up. Then he grabs another kid to complete the foursome with Roland and his henchmen, sending them toward a crate. They don't even care about the other kid's bleeding nose. The fatigue holding Connor against the wall sneers at him. The sooner you're in a box, the sooner you're somebody else's problem. Nice socks, says Connor. They put Connor in a 4x8 crate that already has 3 kids waiting to complete their quartet. The crate is sealed even before he can see who's inside with him, but as long as it's not Roland, it will do. We're all gonna die in here, says a nasal voice, followed by a wet sniff that doesn't sound like it clears much of anything. Connor knows this kid by his mucus. He's not sure his name. Everyone just calls him the mouth breather, since his nose is perpetually stuffed. MB, for short. He's the one that's always obsessively reading his comic book, but he can't quite do that in here. Don't talk like that, says Connor. If the fatigues wanted to kill us, they would have done it a long time ago. The mouth breather has foul breath that's filling up the whole crate. Maybe they got found out. Maybe the juvie cops are on their way and the only way to save themselves is to destroy the evidence. Connor has little patience for whiners. It reminds him too much of his younger brother, the one his parents chose to keep. Shut up, MB, or I swear I'm going to take off my sock, shove it in your stinky mouth, and you'll finally have to figure out a way to breathe through your nose. Let me know if you need an extra sock, says a voice just across from him. Hi, Connor. It's Hayden. Hey, Hayden. Connor reaches out and finds Hayden's shoe, squeezing it, the closest thing to a greeting in this claustrophobic darkness. So who's lucky number 4? No answer. Sounds like we must be traveling with a mime. Another long pause. Then Connor hears a deep, accented voice. Diego. Diego doesn't talk much, says Hayden. I figured, replies Connor. They wait in silence, punctuated by the mouth breather's snorts. I gotta go to the bathroom, MB mumbles. You should have thought of that before you left, says Hayden, putting on his best mother voice. How many times do we have to tell you? Always use the potty before climbing into a shipping crate. We don't like this, whines MB. We're being moved, says Hayden. By forklift, probably, says Connor. The fatigues are probably long gone by now. What was it the one fatigue had said? Once you're in a box, you're somebody else's problem. Whoever's been hired to ship them probably has no clue what's in the crates. Soon they'll be on board some aircraft, headed to an undisclosed destination. The thought of it makes him think about the rest of his family and their trip to the Bahamas, the one they planned to take once Connor was unwound. He wonders if they went. Would they still take their vacation even after Connor had kicked AWOL? Sure they would. They were planning to take it once he got unwound, so why would his escape stop them? Hey, wouldn't it be funny if they were being shipped to the Bahamas too? We're gonna suffocate. I know it, announces the mouth breather. Will you shut up, says Connor. I'm sure there's more than enough air in here for us. How do you know? I can barely breathe already. I got asthma too. I could have an asthma attack in here and die. Good, says Connor. One less person breathing the air. That shuts MB up. But Connor feels bad for having said it. No one's going to die, he said. Just relax. And then Hayden says, at least dying's better than being unwound, or is it? Let's take a poll. Would you rather die or be unwound? Don't ask things like that, snaps Connor. I don't want to think about it either. Somewhere outside of their little crated universe, Connor hears a metal hatch closing and can feel the vibration in his feet as they begin to taxi. Connor waits. Engines power up and can feel the vibration in his feet. Okay, I don't know how much of the book in the beginning, but basically this whole universe happens. No. So basically the act of unwinding happened after the Heartland War. The Heartland War was basically between pro-life and pro-choice people. So basically unwinding is the compromise between pro-life and pro-choice. So how it works is once you turn 13, you have lost spleen privilege, exactly. Once you turn 13, your parents can have the choice to postpartumly abort you for whatever reason. But between 13 and 18, at any given time, your parents can decide that they want to have you unwound. So, all right. So they send you off to this camp, and later at the end of the book, there's a chapter that goes through someone being unwound and like their thoughts while it's happening. But basically what it is they take you apart bit by bit. So they'll like take off your feet, and then that is the worst compromise. For real, honestly, it's not any better. And then they'll like take off, the lower half of the leg, your thigh. And the whole time these kids are alive. That's why it's okay, because these kids don't really die. They just slowly get taken apart, like bit by bit. And then basically other people like Sai, he got in that accident. It's the most American compromise, for real. He got in that accident and he got brain damage. The front temporal lobe that he got was from an unwind. People lose arms and they'll get an unwind's arm, or they'll have their eye replaced from an unwind. So it's basically like repo in some fucked up sense. But it only happens to kids between 13 and 18. So yeah, and you learn that a lot of the kids who were sent to be unwound just have like mental illness disorders that, their parents were like, we could send you to therapy, but nah, we'll just send you to be unwound. You're someone else's problem now. So I guess it's interesting because this book talks about the concept of the human soul. And that's why the kids who get unwound don't die, because their soul is like still alive in all of these like little bits that are now around the world. Like earlier in the book, there was a guy that they met who got an arm or a hand from an unwind. I think it was the arm, and I don't know. But either way, after he got the arm put on, all of a sudden he knew how to do card tricks. Because I guess the person the arm came from did magic. And then, like Sai, he has, a part of that other kid's brain. He basically has gotten these kids' kleptomaniac tendencies that he's dealing with now because of, the impulsive part of the brain or whatever part he got of the brain. So it's interesting, the concept, I guess. But yeah, I feel like I went way too long about that, but that's what that basically is. Okay. The concept is an actual thing. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. People are fucked up, especially pro-life people. Like, oh my god. And then Hayden says, at least dying's better than being unwound. Or is it? They get tendencies from their donors. Oh, okay. Like, for example, a heart. I mean, it makes sense. It completely makes sense. I mean, we're all wired differently. Everyone's bodies function differently. So, why not, why would that not change if you're getting a body part from someone else? Like it's gonna, I feel like it would continue to function the way it has been functioning. So, I mean, it makes sense, but yeah, it's really weird to think about. And then Hayden says, at least dying's better than being unwound. Or is it? Let's take a poll. Would you rather die or be unwound? Don't ask things like that, snaps Connor. I don't want to think about it either. Somewhere outside of their little crated universe, Connor hears a metal hatch closing and can feel the vibration in his feet as they begin to taxi. Connor waits. Engines power up, and he can feel the vibration in his feet. He's pushed back against the wall as they accelerate. Hayden tumbles into him, and he shifts over, giving Hayden room to get comfortable again. What's happening? What's happening? Cries Emby. Nothing, we're just taking off. What? We're on a plane? Connor rolls his eyes, but his gesture is lost in the darkness. The box is like a coffin. See, I don't think being in the box would bug me. What would bug me is being in the box with other bodies in there. Like, that's when I would get claustrophobic. That would not be a fun time. On a plane on top of that, girl, boy, peep, no. No, I don't want it. It can go away. The box is like a coffin. The box is like a womb. Normal measures of time don't seem to apply, and the unpredictable turbulence of flight fills the dark space with an ever-present tension. Once they're airborne, the four kids don't speak for a very long time. Half an hour maybe? It's hard to tell. Everyone's mind is trapped in the holding pattern of their own uneasy thoughts. The plane hits some rough air. Everything around them rattles. Connor wonders if there are kids in crates above them, below them, and on every side. He can't hear their voices if they are. From where he sits, it feels like the four of them are the only ones in the universe. Emby silently relieves himself. Connor knows because he can smell it. Everyone can, but no one says anything. It could just as easily be any one of them, and depending on how long the trip is, it still could be. Finally, after what feels like forever, the quietest of them all speaks. Unwound, Diego says. I'd rather be unwound. Even though it's been a long time since Hayden posed the question, Connor knows immediately what it refers to. Would you rather die or be unwound? It's like the question has hung in the cramped darkness all this time, waiting to be answered. Just like creeping in the corner like, hee 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 hee, you know you want to answer me. The dark, dreary question plaguing your thoughts. Not me, says Emby, because if you die, at least you go to heaven. Heaven, thinks Connor. More likely they go to the other place, because if their own parents didn't care enough about them to keep them, who would want them in heaven? What makes you think unwinds don't go? Diego asks Emby. Because unwinds aren't really dead. They're still alive. Sort of. I mean, they have to use every single part of us somewhere, right? That's the law. Then Hayden asks the question. Not a question, the question. Asking it is a great taboo among those marked for unwinding. It's what everyone thinks about, but no one ever dares to ask out loud. So then, says Hayden, if every part of you is alive, but inside someone else, are you alive or are you dead? This, Connor knows, is Hayden bringing his hand back and forth across the flame again. Close enough to feel it, but not close enough to burn. In case y'all don't remember, Hayden was the kid that was with Roland at the very, very first safe house they stayed in with Sonia. What are we chatting about? Hi, Sol. I'm sorry, I didn't notice. I saw Arch's message. That was weird. We are reading a book. Welcome into book club. I hope you're having a good night. They don't have a reading category, so just chatting is what we're going to do. Finally, after what feels like forever... Oh, I already read all that. Talking wastes our oxygen, Connor says. Let's just agree that unwinding sucks and leave it at that. It shuts everyone up, but only for a minute. It's MB who talks next. I don't think unwinding is bad, he says. I just don't want it to happen to me. Connor wants to ignore him, but can't. If there's one thing Connor can't abide, it's an unwind who defends unwinding. So it's alright if it happens to us, but not if it happens to you? I didn't say that. Yes, you did. Ooh, says Hayden. This is getting good. They say it's painless, says MB, as if that were any consolation. Yeah, says Connor. Well, why don't you go ask all the pieces of Humphrey Dunphy how painless it was? The name settles like a frost around them. The jolts and rattles of turbulence grow sharper. So, you heard that story too, says Diego? Just because there are stories like that doesn't mean unwinding is all bad, says MB. It helps people. You sound like a tithe, says Diego. Connor finds himself personally insulted by that. No, he doesn't. I know a tithe. His ideas might have been a little bit out there, but he wasn't stupid. The thought of Lev brings with it a wave of despair. Connor doesn't fight it. He lets it wash through him, then drain away. He doesn't know a tithe. He knew one. One who has certainly met his destiny by now. Are you calling me stupid? Says MB. I think I just did. Hayden laughs. Hey, the mouth breather is right. Unwinding does help people. If it wasn't for unwinding, there'd be bald guys again. Wouldn't that be horrible? Diego snickers, but Connor is not the least bit amused. MB, why don't you do us all a favor and use your mouth for breathing instead of talking until we land or crash or whatever. You might think I'm stupid, but I got a good reason for the way I feel, MB says. When I was little, I was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis. Both my lungs were shutting down. I was going to die. So they took out both my dying lungs and gave me a single lung from an unwind. The only reason I'm alive is because that kid got unwound. So, says Connor, your life is more important than his? He was already unwound. It's not like I did it to him. If I didn't get that lung, someone else would have. In his anger, Connor's voice begins to rise, even though MB's only a couple of feet away at most. If there wasn't unwinding, there'd be fewer surgeons and more doctors. If there wasn't unwinding, they'd go back to trying to cure diseases instead of just replacing stuff with someone else's. And suddenly, the mouth breather's voice rings out with a ferocity that catches Connor by surprise. Wait till you're the one who's dying and see how you feel about it. I'd rather die than get a piece of an unwind, Connor yells back. The mouth breather tries to shout something else, but instead goes into a coughing fit that lasts for a whole minute. It gets so bad, it frightens even Connor. It's like he might actually cough up his transplant lung. You okay, says Diego? Yeah, says MB, trying to get it under control. Like I said, the lungs got asthma. It was the best we could afford. Wow. 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 He's still defending unwinding. Like, bitch. Bitch, now you live with debilitating asthma. By the time his coughing fit is over, it seems there's nothing more to say except this. If your parents went to all that trouble, asks Hayden, were they having you unwound? Hayden and his questions. This one shuts Emby down for a few moments. It's clearly a tough topic for him. Maybe even tougher than it is for most unwinds. My parents didn't sign the order. I'm gonna be so for real. I see his side. And well, I mean, it's the same concept with people who sell drugs. Like, they'll just say, well, if I don't sell them, somebody else will. Which is true. And I feel like people who say that are basically just succumbing to the system and how it works. Like, this is the way it is. So if I don't take advantage of it, if I don't use this, then somebody else will. Capitalism, exactly. So I can understand where he's coming from too, but it's all just different perspectives, because obviously, you know, Connor's never needed a part saved. He became an unwound before he needed a piece from an unwound and potentially dies. So of course, from his standpoint, he's going to be like, no, I don't want an unwound, because, like, I don't want a piece of an unwound, because this fucking sucks. This sucks. And then, of course, Emby, you know, got that unwound part first and literally saved his life. I mean, now we're going to find out why, but here we go. My parents didn't sign the order, Emby finally says. My dad died when I was little, and my mom died 2 months ago. That's when my aunt took me in. The thing is, my mom's left me some money, but my aunt's got 3 kids of her own to put through college, so... Wow. Fucking A. Like, how all these kids have such fucked up stories. And people are... These are the pro-life people, by the way. Pro-life people. That's so fucked, right? That's so fucked up. Like... It's just crazy. And I feel like it kind of does ring true because... And not everyone who's pro-life, but usually pro-life people who scream it at the top of their lungs are like the least pro-life people to ever exist, because they're like pro-birth. Like, they just want the baby to be born, and then after that, they don't give a fuck what happens to it. They don't care about life. So it's like these people like, oh, it's okay because you're still alive. It's fine. No guilt. I didn't murder anybody. I am guilt-free. La-di-da. So it... So yeah, it's... Tell me why I like depressing books like this, because holy shit. He doesn't have to finish. The others can connect the dots. Man, that stinks, says Diego. Yeah, says Connor, his anger at Emby now transferred to Emby's aunt. It's always about money, Hayden says. When my parents were splitting up, they fought over money until there was none left. Then they fought over me. So I got out before there was none of me left either. Silence falls again. That's right, because Hayden's parents, pro-first birth, exactly. We learned this earlier, like way earlier in the book, but Hayden's parents were getting a divorce, right? They were fighting over whoever's going to have custody of Hayden. Neither one of them could decide, so they decided just to have him unwound instead. They were so petty about the other parent not getting their child that they were just like, then neither one of us will have him. And it's just crazy because you know people like this exist. These people would make these choices and walk this earth today. God. Silence falls again. There's nothing to hear but the drone of the engine and the rattle of the crates. The air is humid and it's a struggle to breathe. The children who break their toys to avoid sharing. Exactly! There's nothing to hear. Oh, I already read that. The air is humid and it's a struggle to breathe. Connor wonders if maybe the fatigues miscalculated about how much air they had. We're all gonna die in here. That's what Emby said. Connor begs his head back sharply against the wall, hoping to jar loose the bad thoughts clinging to his brain. This is not a good place to be alone with your thoughts. Perhaps that's why Hayden feels compelled to talk. No one ever answered my question, Hayden says. Looks like no one has the guts. Which one? You've got questions coming out of you like farts on Thanksgiving. I was asking if unwinding kills you, or if it leaves you alive somehow. Come on, it's not like we haven't thought about it. Emby says nothing. He's clearly been weakened by coughing and conversation. Connor's not interested in volunteering either. It depends, says Diego. Depends on where your soul is once you're unwound. Normally, Connor would walk away from the conversation like this. His life is about tangibles, things you can see, hear, and touch. God's souls and all that has been like a secret in a black box he couldn't see into, so it was easier just to leave it alone. Only now, he's inside the black box. What do you think, Connor? Says Hayden. What happened to your soul when you get unwound? Who says I even got one? For the sake of argument, let's say you do. Well, who says I want an argument? I-J-O-L-E. Ihole? Just give him an answer, man, or he won't leave you alone. Connor squirms, but can't squirm his way out of the box. How should I know what happens to it? Maybe it gets all broken up like the rest of us into a bunch of little pieces. But a soul isn't like that, says Diego. It's indivisible. Well, if it's indivisible, says Hayden, maybe an unwind spirit stretches out, kind of like a giant balloon between all the parts of us in other places. Very poetic. Hayden might find poetry in it, but to Connor the thought is terrifying. He tries to imagine himself stretched so thin, so wide that he can reach around the world. He imagines his spirit like a web strung between the thousands recipients of his hands, his eyes, the fragments of his brain, none of it under his control anymore, all absorbed by the bodies and wills of others. Could consciousness exist like that? He thinks about the trucker who performed a card trick for him with an unwind's hand. Did the boy who once owned that hand still feel the satisfaction of performing the trick? Was his spirit still inexplicably whole, even though his flesh had been shuffled like the deck of cards, or was he shredded beyond all hope of awareness, beyond heaven, hell, or anything eternal? Whether or not souls exist, Connor doesn't know, but consciousness does exist. That's something he knows for sure. But what if your consciousness is your soul? What if it's the same? Kills you, in my opinion, even if you have a soul still here, you no longer exist as yourself, right? You said it right. Ihole translate basically to, oh my goodness, or for fuck's sake. Well, for fuck's sake, Connor. Quit being difficult. Okay. That's something he knows for sure. If every part of an unwind is still alive, then that consciousness has to go somewhere, doesn't it? He silently curses Hayden for making him think about it. But Hayden isn't done yet. Hayden isn't done yet. Here's a little brain clot for you, says Hayden. I knew this girl back home. There was something about her that made you want to listen to the things she had to say. I don't know whether she was really well-centered or just psychotic. She believed that if someone actually gets unwound, then they never had a soul to begin with. She said God must have known who's going to be unwound, and he doesn't give them souls. Diego grunts his disapproval. I don't like the sound of that. This girl had it all worked out in her head, continued Hayden. She believed the unwinds are like the unborn. Wait a second, says Emby, finally breaking his silence. The unborn have souls. They have souls from the moment they get made. The law says... Oh yeah, because they determined that life begins at conception and made that into law. Bitch, that is... opinion. Like, the whole abortion argument, like, why are we focusing on when someone has consciousness, when someone has a soul? Like, that's not what the argument is about. The argument is fundamentally about, consent, bodily autonomy, all of that. You're either for bodily autonomy or you're not for bodily autonomy. There's no, like, I believe the baby is the soul. I believe it's just a parasite. Like, it's not even about that. Right? It's human autonomy. So, the fact that in this fictional story, which we all know could potentially be a real thing hundreds of years from now, who fucking knows, if Earth doesn't consume us and eat us whole by then, how the fuck do they determine consciousness and then effectively put that into law? That'd be like me saying that the air is made from cotton candy. I am going to put that into law. You must Maybe it is really cotton candy because I just choked on air. I was like, all right, soak up the cotton candy. Eat it. It's going to cure your cancer. That is law. I mean, if that's how we could really make things reality, I'd be like, everyone's a nice bitch. That is law. Everybody likes to smoke marijuana. That is law. Nobody has to work a day in their life. And we will all be happy. That is law. But no, it don't work like that. So, fuck these people. Okay, we'll get back to the book, I guess. I think I'm going to finish after this chapter. We're almost to the end. Outlaw Viagra. We could. God decided to give you limp dick. Sorry. You must deal with the consequences. This girl... Oh, wait, hold on. Connor doesn't want to get into it again with MB, but he can't help himself. Just because the law says it, that doesn't make it true. Yeah, well, just because the law says it, that doesn't make it false either. It's only the law because a whole lot of people thought about it and decided it made sense. Reality. That's reality. Like, it's an agreed upon idea. And everyone was like, yeah, that makes sense, and they just went with it. That's what I have said about everything. Anything in life is some made-up concept, and everyone was just like, okay, that sounds good. We'll go with that. So your reality can change. You just got to get everyone around you to get with the program. That's why I think this whole argument about, like, LGBTQ, trans, gay stuff is stupid. Or gender. It's stupid. Like, gender is whatever the fuck we want it to be. Just get with the program. Like, stop being so limited and defining yourself by your genitals. It's weird. A few hundred years from now, we will seem so backwards to everyone. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. Hopefully for the better. Like, we're for the better a couple years from now and not for worse. But I think about that all the time. Like, when I'm 80, what are people going to be saying about the early 200,000s or the... Yeah, I don't know. Early 2000s. Early 20th century. There we go. Early 20th century. 21st century. We're in the 21st century. Whew. That was a lot of fucking years. Says Diego. The mouth breather has a point. Maybe so, but the way Connor sees it, a point ought to be sharper than that. How can you pass laws about things that nobody knows? They do it all the time, says Hayden. That's what law is. Educated guesses at right and wrong. And what the law says is fine with me, says MB. But if it weren't for the law, would you still believe it? Asks Hayden. Share with us a personal opinion, MB. Prove there's more than snot in that cranium of yours. You're wasting your time, says Connor. There's not. Give our congested friend a chance, says Hayden. They wait. The sound of the engine changes. Connor can feel them begin a slow descent and wonders if the others can feel it too. Then MB says, Unborn babies. They suck their thumbs sometimes, right? And they kick? Yeah, probably from responses in the brain. I don't know. That's when they've got a soul. Good for you, says Hayden. An opinion. I knew you could do it. Connor's head begins to spin. Was it the plane's banking or lack of oxygen? Connor, fair is fair. MB found an opinion somewhere in his questionable gray matter. Now you have to give yours. Connor sighs, not having the strength to fight anymore. He thinks about the baby he and Reese so briefly shared. If there's such a thing as a soul, and I'm not saying that there is, then it comes when a baby's born into the world. Before that, it's just a part of the mother. No, it's not, says MB. Hey, he wanted my opinion. I gave it. No, is that why toddlers are terrorists? Because they don't have souls. They don't get a soul until their 4th birthday, and then you must do this. I mean, no, honestly, you're probably right. That's why they have no remorse or empathy, because they are soulless demons, and then when they turn 4, it's just like, ah, soulful child of innocence. I mean, fucking Silas threw a block at me this morning during stream, and it hit me. Like, right where my nail bed meets my finger. It hurts so bad. You see, Hayden? You see what you started? Yes, Hayden says excitedly. It looks like we're about to have our own little Heartland War. Pity it's too dark for us to watch it. If you want my opinion, you're both wrong, says Diego. The way I see it, it's got nothing to do with all of that. It has to do with love. Uh-oh, says Hayden. Diego's getting romantic. I'm moving to the other end of the crate. No, I'm serious. A person don't got a soul until that person is loved. If a mother loves her baby, wants her baby, it's got a soul from the moment she knows it's there. The moment you're loved, that's when you got your soul. Punto. Yeah, says Connor. Well, what about all these babies that get storked? Or all those kids in state schools? They just better hope somebody loves them someday. Connor snorts dismissively. Ability unlocked. Empathy. Empathy level 1. For real. And then as you get older, the empathy, points kind of drop off. Or drop on, depending where your life is going. Connor snorts dismissively, but in spite of himself, he can't dismiss it entirely, any more than he can dismiss the other things he's heard today. He thinks about his parents. Did they ever love him? Certainly they did when he was little, and just because they stopped, it didn't mean his soul was stolen away, although sometimes to admit that it felt like it was, or at least part of it died when his parents signed the order. Diego, that's really sweet, Hayden says in his best mocking voice. Maybe you should write greeting cards. Hayden just laughs. Or maybe I should write them on your face. Hayden just laughs. You always poke fun at other people's opinions, says Connor. So how come you never give your own? Yeah, says Emby. You're always playing people for your own entertainment. Now it's your turn. Entertain us. Yeah, says Emby. So tell us, says Connor. In the world according to Hayden, when do we start to live? A long silence from Hayden, and then he quietly, uneasily says, I don't know. Emby rouses him. That's not an answer. But Connor reaches out and grabs Emby's arm to shut him up, because Emby's wrong. Even though Connor can't see Hayden's face, he can hear the truth of it in his voice. There was no hint of evasion in Hayden's words. This was raw honesty, void of Hayden's usually flip attitude. It was perhaps the first truly honest thing Connor had ever heard him say. Yes, it is an answer, Connor says. Maybe it's the best answer of all. If more people can admit they really don't know, maybe there never would have ever been a Heartland War. That's how I feel about wars from different religions. Just admit that your theory could be wrong. I think everyone would be much more happy. Level 0.1. Unless you're autistic, then it's rudimentary morality. Autistic people have trouble with empathy, right? I believe so. For real. No, I believe so. People are too prideful to admit it. I know! It's human nature? I guess. I hate it. That's true. I don't know. We don't know. We don't know. For all we know, the Christians are right. By parade of fucking all the gods that they're not. They're probably not, because it makes no sense. There's a mechanical jolt beneath them. Emby gasps. Landing gear, says Connor. Oh, right. In a few minutes, they'll be there, wherever there is. Connor tries to guess how long they've been in the air. 90 minutes? 2 hours? There's no telling what direction they've been flying. They could be touching down anywhere. Or maybe Emby was right. Maybe it's piloted by remote control and they're just ditching the whole plane in the ocean to get rid of the evidence. Or what if it's worse than that? What if it's a harvest camp after all, says Emby, finishing Connor's thoughts. Connor doesn't tell him to shut up because he was thinking the same thing. I hope that the Christians are super wrong, for real. I would simply pass away. I'd be like, send me to hell. Satan, I am coming today, Satan, today. Leap of faith into the fires. Catch me, Satan, daddy. That's how that would go. That's how that would go. Whoo, dive in. It's Diego who answers him. If it is, then I want my fingers to go to a sculptor, so he can use them to craft something that will last forever. They all think about that. Hayden is the next to speak. If I'm unwound, says Hayden, I want my eyes to go to a photographer. One who shoots supermodels. That's what I want these eyes to see. My lips will go to a rock star, says Connor. These legs are definitely going to the Olympics. My ears to an orchestra conductor. My stomach to a food critic. My biceps to a bodybuilder. I wouldn't wish my sinuses on anybody. And they're all laughing as the plane touches down. The next part's really sad. I kind of want to keep reading, but I also kind of want to just start the next stream off with a... No, he was a priest. He paid $19.99 for a certificate. Yes, he invented charity, but he did not believe in praying for everything in life. Honestly. Alright, y'all. That was a lot of reading, and we only read 7 chapters. Those were some really long chapters. We read this many pages, which I guess doesn't seem like a lot, but we're like halfway through the book, a little over halfway. And I'm chaos. I dog ear my pages because my kids lose all my bookmarks, so it's just easier to dog ear them because then my place does not get lost. We did get sidetracked, which I'm okay with that because technically it's like a book club discussion type stream. So I'm fine with that. Cries and sadness. It's okay. You know, I do upload these to YouTube, so if y'all want to go and get a more cohesive listening of the read-through, we could do that. So if you are watching from YouTube, this was part 4 of our read-through of Unwind. Tonight, we read chapters 21 to 27. And it's getting really good. The AWOLs just got to the place where they all are in hiding. I will give you a little hint. It's basically like Lord of the Flies after that, because it's a bunch of kids stuck on this little island. So shit gets crazy, because, you know, teens get hormotional and crazy. Hormotional! Don't be a whore emotional! Don't be a whore with your emotions. You're too hormotional. So yeah, things are about to get really fun.